Welcome back to Lit versus Genre, everybody. I'm Steve,
And I am Jove.
and here we are. We are still on the road, Jeff. This Caemlyn road, man.
Never.
It's
And
it
so the
it's
best part
long.
is if you look at the map at the front of the book, right, or your
Okay,
digital copy,
okay.
the distance from Four Kings to Caemlyn, not that long, and yet and yet the length
I am very
of
surprised
five.
by that. I'm very
Yeah,
surprised by
as I thought you would be. Take a
that.
look at this. Oh God,
I
can we get
it's
that
too
zoom in?
small. I can't. I
Ah,
don't think I can zoom. Can I zoom?
and and this is
Oh no,
why.
it just takes me to the next page. It doesn't let me
D
zoom.
digital books, man. What are you gonna
Yeah,
do?
digital
But yeah, if
books.
if you look, it's so tiny. Like the distance from, for example, White Bridge to Four Kings,
Uh-huh.
so much, like four to five times
Oh, all
as
right.
long as the distance from Four Kings to Caemlyn, and yet, let's talk about chapter 33.
Yeah, okay. So this beginning was weird. I remember you were talking about like the last time though, like kind of back
Yep,
and forth in time. This one was like really
yep.
intense. And
It was
like,
super intense.
well, first of all, it's even kind of I thought it was like disorienting. We're right in this cart. And like,
Right.
okay, so you're gonna go back and explain how we
Mhm.
got in this cart. But like it was weird starting in it. And what was this wording here? His arms felt as if they might
I
stretch
was waiting for you to talk to me about this
instead of
sentence.
drawing him up. And for a minute his head wanted to keep on going and float away. But it was easier. It had been easier than it had been an hour earlier to
Yeah.
pull
There,
himself out. Okay.
there were a couple sentences in this opening. I was just like, I'm going to be talking about these. But like, just because they
Yeah, I
weren't
don't think
as
like
clearly written.
yeah, I
Yeah.
don't think I have enough of a visual like in these
Mhm.
first two sentences to like see that he's like he's
Right.
somehow he's laying in the hay in the
Right.
back of the thing, but he pulls himself up at the same time he's kind of pulling himself over the back of it so he
Right.
can look at the land going by.
Yeah. Now that I've seen it, I know the context. I get what it's going for. The idea that it like before he couldn't even do this. It's still hard though. It feels like his
Mhm.
arms are gonna like stretch Armstrong instead
Right.
of actually like letting him get over the lip, right?
Right, right.
This head feels like it's just gonna float away, right? But like in the moment, definitely kind of going in raw to this chapter was, yeah, no, it took me a few.
Right on. So they're here with
I
this
feel you.
man.
Mhm.
Here's my other thing.
Right.
Who's keeping up all these hedges?
I
Who is
did
whose
wonder.
job is it to go and trim all these hedges along these roads? They're
There,
everywhere.
there's a late, there's a later part that I really like, which I do think is true, where it
Mm-hmm.
talks about as they're getting closer to Caemlyn, that there's not these like big breaks in between towns, and like there's no big forests near the road, or they're
Mm-hmm.
like if there are forests, they're kind of like chopped, and that all made sense to me. But I do agree. I was like, wait, who is making the trimmed edges? No, so I feel you.
All right. Um. So
Mhm.
okay. So we're going along. Matt's
You
still
highlighted
got.
the Trump moment right here. None of us that look almost right at the sun. Is that what's happening?
Oh.
The Trumpism from back in the day.
Right. Yeah. That's sort of why I did that.
I thought
I'm
maybe. I
like
thought maybe.
Matt. Don't do that. Wait. This is why. This is not gonna help your eyes.
Matt, don't hurt yourself. What?
Yeah.
But
Exactly.
I do what I do like about this though, and this is something that obviously like maybe I mistakenly said in the last chapter and tried to recover, but the fact we are dealing with the ramifications of them being so near a lightning strike. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Yeah.
I like as crazy as that was. I feel like the fact that we live with that for a bit, like it just it just adds to the storytelling and like just feeling like you're actually there. And I know we talked about that being a Deus ex machina and all that, but in terms of this blindness, I enjoy it. Did you have any feelings about that at all, or
I like
just
he's got the scarf wrapped around his head now.
right,
No,
right?
like
And then people look at him for it because of
yeah,
that.
it's
And they're
just
like,
kind
what are you
of
doing?
it's just kind of comical if this is like Matt's
Mm.
new look now.
Oh yeah, this is
And
why there's not a Matt fandom that there is because of this right here.
because of the scarf.
Yep.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, and I guess like it's interesting this like Rand recovering because you read this right
Mhm.
after last chapter and you think Rand's just kind of recovering from the same thing. But
Right.
then when you get the flashback, he
Mhm.
seems pretty fine until
Right?
then he kind of randomly gets sick.
Exactly.
So again, kind of confusing because you feel like it's gonna be one thing,
I
and it's kind of another. But
totally. I had no memory that there were this many time jumps in the story. Like, but now it's been a very consistent thing of like, here we are, let's rewind time. Here we
yeah,
are, let's rewind time. And like we said in the last grouping, there was like a double rewind.
yeah,
But yeah, this one, it was so crazy because like we didn't, I'm not saying it's wrong to start here, but we didn't have to, right? Like we could have just started with them on the road after the lightning
yeah,
and we could have just done that all that normal thing. But he wanted that sort of, hit that happens at the end of like them getting on this farmer's cart and being like, hey, I'm this guy. And we're like, oh, we know who that is. And there is, I did feel a moment of like, I don't know, satisfaction of like, I'm this guy and I'm like, I know who you are. Because I've already like read the chapter where you offered for them to come. But it's interesting because in like this flashback, we then do learn actually about the guy who gave them the scarves to begin with and everything. So we rewind past like the previous chapter even. So it's like a huge rewind that we do here. It's very fascinating to me
Oh
structurally.
wait, I thought something was just kind of repetitive.
Mm,
Where
we
yeah,
had
I have to check this out because the guy says the same. The guy who gives them the scarves says
Yep,
kind of the
yep,
same thing. Like I don't know, I don't want to know
right.
what what's going on with you. So wait, so
But
this was the same dude, but that can't be right because that had to be
yeah,
after the lightning strike.
no, exactly. So he was remembering that conversation before, but like in this one, we actually live that conversation, you know?
But he
But
was
I hear you about
remembering
the time
it.
frame.
Ah, I'm so
That,
confused.
right, that's what I'm saying, bro. Like these time skips are kind of crazy.
Yeah.
The amount that are happening and like how far we go back, because that's what I was saying about like the memory within the memory, because they're on the road, right? Like,
Hmm.
what was in the previous chapter? They're on the road. They're looking for like a hole in a hedge as someone's coming,
Right.
and they're like, not since like we don't trust anyone after the Four Kings, right? And they like remember some guy giving them scars and they like pull it up, right?
Whoa, whoa,
Then
whoa. I need to go back. Wait,
yeah, let's go
so the
back.
very
Yeah,
beginning of the previous chapter was after the Four
yeah,
Kings.
yeah. Here it is.
What? Was
It's
it
no, it's
Play
the
for
one
Your
even before.
Supper?
No, no, it's yeah. Play for your supper. Yeah, Rand narrowed his eyes, watching the dust. Yeah, let's go to play for your supper.
I
Perfect.
already had it.
Um, yeah. See, I don't want to know who you're running from. He said with anxious frown. I don't want to understand my family.
Right.
This is the same guy we then see in the other chapter, right?
Obscure. He blinked and just did the plain
Hmm.
dark scarf across his nose
Yeah,
and mouth.
a farmer giving it to him.
What the heck?
Yeah,
Rand treasures
and
the
then so.
scarf.
Mhm.
So this is all happening after the lightning strike.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure
What?
here it's. I'm pretty sure here it says that they don't trust anything after that space. Um, where is it?
And then for a long time after leaving Whitebridge is where we go back?
Yeah, no. So it's got to be before that they message it. Where is it?
Because that's
Yeah, maybe.
wild. Because I kind of
may,
thought that was like just a weird bit of
well, yeah,
repetition that this
you know,
other
so,
guy was saying the exact same thing.
no, this is after that other scene. So we go. That's what I was saying. We rewind time past chapter 31. Um, but I mean, we were rewinding time in 31 anyway. Yeah. Because we go to the for a long time after Whitebridge, right? Where is it?
Wow.
But
I
yeah,
don't think
anyway,
they
we have to
say
find it.
Four Kings here though to like
I mean, not.
completely I mean I believe you
No, no,
but I
you
don't
might be right. I mean, he may not have specifically, right?
right.
Um, but I mean, they're definitely way more nervous in this chapter, right? They're
Yeah.
like, on edge and everything. Yeah,
Interesting.
we don't get a clear line because then obviously we meet the guy who takes them, and then at the end of that, then they've only got a couple days until they're getting to Caemlyn. But anyway, definitely, I'm glad we went back though, just to see the repetition of the scarf to show that he's remembering that, and then obviously in this flashback that we're currently reading, we get to actually meet that guy,
Wild. Wild.
right?
Okay, so
Yeah.
because the other thing that this did, though, for me, that I guess you can say is good, but again, almost like on my old hobby horse, it made me feel like this writing is weird. And then when it's like
Ooh.
explained later, you're like, okay, but I still thought it was really weird in the moment. And that is like kind
Right.
of how like crazy Matt is about this dude because this dude offers them, he's
This
like,
guy's a good
look,
ass, yeah.
and I feel like I would be at this point in the journey. Like, I realize you're trying to go and meet up with Moraine. But I
Right.
think after you just got, locked in a shed and you were about to get straight up murdered, I'd be like, yeah, let's hide out on this farm where there's
And
nobody at all. And Matt's like
instead of going to
immediately
the
like, you're a dark friend. And I was like, what, Matt, you're acting crazy. Now we get later because they've just been attacked by like
right,
two different
right,
dark friends who
exactly.
are like massively inept. Like
I
they make
oh, I love
Goad
how
look
inept.
like
Oh,
amazing because they're just
right.
like dur dur dur. We will.
Dude, I love how inept they are, especially Pater. Like it's so amazing. But anyway, we'll get to that. We'll get to that in just a moment. But for this, I do want to say Matt's acting crazy, but we have seen Matt act crazy for a while. Like he'll be crazy and then he'll be like, "I'm sorry," like I'm
Mm.
sorry, I've been crazy, right? So like this does sort of fit with him, but I hear you, especially because it's like just the road cable. Like so, we're going on this one path. Like obviously, they could find us at any point on
I
this path. Like the people are
know.
looking for
Like
us,
they're
right?
going to the biggest city. It's clear where they're
Right,
going. Rand
right,
even thinks at some point, "Wait, why are they even chasing us? They're just gonna be where we're going.
right,
Like they're
exactly.
just gonna
But
straight be there." And I'm like, "Yeah, bro, they totally are."
But I do love how they save it. But again, it's not now. It's later we learn of all the people going to see the false dragon,
Right.
right? And so they get to blend in with the crowds. But yeah, in this moment, we don't know any of that, right? And
I'm
so that's why I
also
find, go ahead. Yeah.
I also found myself wondering, where is Man Bat? Like, where the
Ah,
heck is Man
where's the
Bat?
comment?
There's one road going to
Yeah.
Caemlyn. They clearly know they're on it
Nope.
because they have
Nope.
like dark friends constantly all over the place.
He's
Where's
he's in
Man
use.
Bat?
He's
It,
in use in other locations.
he still never like crossed the river or something? Dude, you
Too
can
easy.
fly.
Too,
Just do
too
it.
easy, Steve. Too easy.
All right, Man Bat, you're freaking useless. Why do we even hype you up? You're so useless.
Oh, Dakota's so cool though.
Oh,
But anyway, yeah, go ahead.
here's another thing that was funny when I did when I was looking for a
Oh,
picture for the last video. I looked up
right.
Goat or whatever his name is,
Oh, yeah, yeah,
and the pictures were all he looked insane, like he looked like a
yeah.
crazy zombie, and I'm like, what is going on here? Why does he look
That's
like this?
that's amazing. Talk about spoilers.
Yes. I feel like finding little pictures for the videos have spoiled more things
Oh
for
my goodness.
me
Well,
than like.
wait for the trailer. Oh my goodness, we can't even. Okay, we'll talk
Nice.
about that in a minute.
I'm excited.
But yeah, for the so let's get into this dream segment because we do have a couple little dream segments.
Too many dream
I can't even.
segments.
I can't even.
Too many.
Okay, so I figured you would say that about this one, but I love that we see Goat, right? Like I like that
Hmm.
it's not just him and Baalzamon, right? It's like we're seeing Goat and we're seeing like sort of the I don't know ramifications, comeuppance, however you want to view it, and obviously the spoilers you saw in your pictures, right?
Right.
Um, but I
Well,
don't know, I
then,
just
as I was
enjoy
reading
being in
it, I
front of it.
thought maybe Goad was gonna be like a continuing character with his like
Mm,
face burned off or whatever.
right, right.
But no, he just kind of like disintegrates here or
Mm,
whatever.
yep.
I mean, I guess this was somewhat new information. Something about like, what's he saying? Something about death.
Death is mine as well, yeah. Because
Yeah.
it becomes that
Here's
is
your
repeated a couple
reward,
times.
he says to him, but then he just
Mhm.
disintegrates them. So
Right.
I don't know if that gave me like so much more information. It just seems like, yeah, Balsamon, bad dude. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I mean, obviously it's become a classic for villains to kill their henchmen. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
why do you, and then of course everyone's like, why do you work for this guy who just murders, you know?
Right.
But what I like about it is seeing I mean, I do like seeing like that goes in the scene just to begin with, but then that the other inept Dark Friends who we're about to talk about, I'm excited about, um, they're like referencing that, you know what I mean? Like the lady knew who Goad was and stuff. So it
Right.
just shows the connections between like the network, and that makes it feel like bigger and just more involved. But yeah.
See,
But
I
anyway,
feel like I would like to understand this villain more, especially if I'm
oh,
like
well, no.
understanding Dark Friends. Now the Dark Friends have, the Dark
Mhm.
Friends have been talked about the whole time, but they haven't really shown
Sure.
up, so I haven't really like
Right, right.
paid that much attention to them. Now that they're coming out of the woodwork, I'm like,
And they do come out of the woodwork in this
they
chapter.
really, like
It is
literally.
crazy. Like,
But now I'm thinking like, okay, what's your guys' motivations? Like what is
mhm.
the draw? Like I want to understand these characters a little bit better because they just seem kind of like random
I
evil.
wonder,
Like are they kind of
yeah,
hypnotized? Or they kind of, or is there like a legitimate like, yeah, I love the
yeah,
dark one because
right.
XYZ. Is
Mhm,
he
mhm.
promising me like life after death or something? Which what
Right.
I thought was what the stream was going for, but then it was like, nah, you're here's your reward. You're even more super dead. And it's
Yeah,
I don't get them. Whereas like I like the
I
Children of the
wonder,
Light guy because I feel like he
right.
feels real and I get him.
Yeah.
These people
Mhm.
just feel like
Exactly.
props a little bit.
I do wonder if maybe like that feedback happened or something because you not only do you this isn't a spoiler, but it's just important
Mm-hmm.
for this conversation. Not only do we get viewpoints from like Forsaken, right? Who are
Mm-hmm.
like the big bads, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, of it, but you also get viewpoints of just regular Dark Friends, and you straight up get to hear like their motivations,
Mm-hmm.
why they've done what they've done.
Right.
And so I do wonder if people were reading this and be like, hey, I would really like to, exactly as you said, right? Um, and I feel like yeah, I know we've talked about this before, and of course later books, but it's just fascinating to hear you say that, and then like that is precisely what happens. And I don't think, yeah, I don't think there's any of that in this book, but you get long chapters from the viewpoints of Dark
All
Friends,
right.
and not just the main Dark, like not even the big ones, just
Mm-hmm.
little ones like these we're meeting right here,
All right.
which yeah, totally adds in the narrative.
Interesting.
Right?
All
I mean,
right.
we don't even need to have you read it to just think about like, yeah, like that. There's that want of like, why are they doing this?
Mm-hmm.
And then he fulfills that. You know?
Well, so you're telling me this is the dude who we were talking about in that earlier chapter gave him the
Yeah,
scarves
yeah,
and gives the
same guy.
same speech.
Yep, yep.
Family.
Hard times.
All right.
Yeah, because that's where they get the scarves, and that's what I'm saying. It like rewinds past that. That's why I was saying the previous one was crazy because there was like a flashback and a flashback, and then this one gives us go past that. Yeah, it's crazy. I never remembered any of this. And it's so interesting that he chooses to tell it this way as opposed to just chronologically, because he could have, right?
Well,
But he does not at all.
when I was reading initially, I like that jump in time that we're on a cart, with
Mm,
this
mm,
guy. And
mm.
when it jumped back, I was like, well, this zaps the tension a little bit. Like I don't think like
Oh, that's
Matt
when
and
Leland
Rand are
talking
gonna
about.
die, but now I know, like as
Right.
all this is happening, that they're at least gonna get to that point where they meet the guy and they
Yeah,
get in the cart,
yeah,
right? So
right,
like all
right.
these Dark Friend attacks are pretty toothless because you're like, well, they haven't
It's like
gotten to that place yet.
you knew exactly what I was going to ask about. So there's that I think we should talk about, and then at the same time, I know it happens later, but Rand has these nightmares, right,
Mm-hmm.
where Moraine and Lan are dead,
Right.
and Egwene is killed by Baalzamon, right, Shop of Perrin, and yet we're also getting their chapters from Nod, right? So I was curious your thoughts on both. you've already sort of, answered one of them, in which that because of the rewinded time, the tension is kind of taken away because we already know that they get to this location because we're going back.
Hmm.
And then also because we're getting I mean, obviously it's been a bit since we got in Nynaeve, and Lana Moraine chapter. Like, probably not dying off camera when we're not looking.
Right.
Like, do those hit in the same way? Obviously not, right? But I'm just curious on your thoughts on that choice.
So just the choice of him like having the dreams of them dead or whatever, and like,
When we know as readers that they're not, just like the same thing here, where we rewind in time and they're put in these life or death situations where we already know they live. You know,
yeah. I mean, I don't know. It didn't like I wasn't like super into it. I mean, I was like, this is fine. It's more dreams
right?
again, and it's like not
Yeah,
really like progressing the story. It's not a conflict between characters. It's
mm,
not, it's just kind of,
right.
it just feels kind of stock. Again, that was like a move that felt very genre to me. That this feels like, oh,
Mm,
I've seen
hmm.
this in things. Oh, wait, there was something else where I was like, is this actually the first time? Oh, so in that
What
part,
is
wait,
it?
let's find that part.
Yeah, okay, do it, do it.
There, he has one of the I woke up from the dream, except I didn't wake up from the
Right,
dream. I'm
right. But
still
it's like,
dreaming. And I was
yep,
like, this
yep.
is like so genre. And then I was like, is this the first time that happened?
Oh, is
I like can't
I don't think
I couldn't
I
think
can't
of
imagine.
like the other I'm sure there's some movies. I mean, it felt to me like a thing that I've,
Yeah.
seen happen. I'm sure horror movies or something I'm
Oh
thinking
yeah. Well,
of.
I mean, I think it's pretty common too when you have a scary dream like that happens, right? So I'm sure since it's just a human experience that it's happened before this
Wait, that
in
you
fiction.
wake up from the dream but you're still dreaming?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Wait, this has happened to you?
Oh, totally. 100%.
That's never happened to
Yeah.
me. I didn't know that
Oh,
was like
really?
I didn't know that was like a real thing. I thought that was just like a clever
Oh,
like a
no, no, that
horror movie gotcha basically where you're like,
no,
"Oh,
no, that's like a real thing.
oh,
Yeah,
all
for sure,
right.
for sure.
All right."
Yeah. I mean, maybe I'm a low percentage of people that have that, but I have absolutely experienced that type of dream
Oh,
thing.
wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's
Um,
freaky as fuck. Yeah, like it's crazy.
yeah. I had never experienced that, but I know, and of course I can't think of an example right now, but I know I've seen
Oh,
it before.
oh yeah, that must seem crazy trippish to you then, if
Yeah,
you've never
no, no.
experienced it.
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, it's
Yeah.
still a trope though, because it has been in like a lot of
Oh, completely.
things.
I've
Like,
definitely seen it in horror movies a million
yeah,
times
yeah.
in horror
And so I
movies.
was
Yeah.
having that thought when we were discussing it before, like every
Mhm.
trope has its
Oh,
first time, and would that be
right.
really effective the first time? Because like this time I
No.
was like, nah.
No, I feel like this was just being human experience. But you're at the Blade, so we got to back up to talk about Peter and then this woman, just the dark friends that come out of the woodwork.
Oh,
So
right.
I just quickly have to gush about the completely inept dark friend that is Peter. There's
You
just
like
like
Peter? Okay.
it stares at them a minute, right? A
Mm-hmm.
full minute, stares at them,
Right.
and then walks over, and it just is like, hey, let's talk. Because there's not enough of me to like actually capture you. So like maybe if I just like talk to you, a fate will show up. Like
Right.
I don't know. That's just amazing to me. Some like young kid who like joined a group because it was the thing to do, right? And but has no way to actually accomplish the task at hand. It's just like, can we chat? Like I don't know. It's just
Where
amazing
is
to me.
Peter? I'm trying to find
Ju-
it.
Just just such a difference from like, Goad, who actually seemed more classic villainy. I look evil and I've got henchmen versus this kid who's just like, can we chat?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's just awesome. I mean, he's terribly inept, as we've already said.
Yeah. Look, like, but here is like again where I'm
Right?
like, what? This is not what Rand's really thinking. Rand thought he might be hoping to share their breakfast. It's like,
I
Rand,
mean,
no, he's a dark friend, clearly.
I mean, Matt's on it. Matt growls it. Matt knows what's
Right.
up.
Matt knows
So
what's
you thought
up. Rand's
you didn't like Matt, and here's Matt
Rand's a
saying the truth.
complete idiot. Yeah. No, more and more I'm on board. Now that Matt's kind of stopped being like, oh, I'm going to like just do pranks all the time because
Yeah.
now I'm half blind and I'm obsessed with my little dagger.
That,
Like he's
that's my
he's
precious. Yep.
He stopped being obsessed with pranks, and I like him a lot better now.
Oh,
Uh,
so there you go. There you go.
but okay, yeah. So I was like, man, what are you talking about? Of course he's a dark friend. Of course he is.
Mhm. Right, right.
Um, this I highlighted. Wait, but he said, "I don't care." He was unsure of which he Matt meant, and I'm like, this is how I feel during this whole book.
Oh, I thought you'd be excited to learn ages. Oh, we'll get
Yeah.
that's in the next
Oh,
chapter
yeah.
though.
Where is that? Somebody says
That
20.
that's in the next chapter. I
Okay.
love. Oh my goodness, I love. That's one of my favorite
Definitely
conversations.
highlighted. Definitely highlighted.
Oh,
Don't
it's
even
it's
don't even
so
worry
good.
about it.
But we got to do the woman. I want you to know this woman has
Mhm.
always stuck out of my mind.
Hmm.
Like I don't know why, but I didn't remember Pater. Though I gush about Pater, I had no
Hmm.
memory of him whatsoever. I mean, like when I started reading, I was like, sure, but the woman, I always remember. I always remember this scene.
Hmm.
And going back through, I was like, it's so short, it's so quick, and yet it just like completely sticks in my memory.
All right.
So I was just curious, like if either, like if any of these like dark friend encounters, like any reactions, what you got?
What do I got? I don't know. Yeah, they're fine. Like this, I did think at first maybe this was just another random woman who's gonna be obsessed with
Right?
Rand. Because
You're
of course
sick,
we have to say that
but
she's
you're
pretty.
tall. Right,
Um,
of course.
but so I'm glad that she just tried to stab him.
Right.
Um, but like, what is the Dark Friends? Yeah, I mean, he does comment on, okay, you're gonna join me. If the dark friends get you instead of you coming to join me, they're gonna be rougher. I
Hmm.
want you
Hmm.
alive, but it's okay if they get you dead because somehow I have some death domain or something.
Right. I like control. He's like Hades, basically.
Right. So I guess I kind of get this, but then again, I'm like, okay, if she knows, so if she knows they're in this barn, she must have
Right.
gotten that information from the innkeeper.
Right.
Why doesn't she get some other dark friends? Why doesn't she call some other dark friends?
Dark villain hotline.
Yeah, call the hotline. Get some backup before you go into the
Uh,
barn. Don't just try and
they're
stab him your own
they're spread
darn self.
they're they're spread out, yo. They
All
got.
right.
We're not in Caemlyn yet. In Caemlyn, obviously, there's plenty of them.
So what
But
happens
here,
here too? Like, there's something about the dagger that it's like
oh,
black or oozed
it's
or
so
something.
cool. No, it makes things smoke, which is awesome. I think
Mm-mm-mm.
I honestly think it's the visuals of the dagger that get me. I think that's probably why I remember it, of like it sticking in the wood and like smoking the wood, and then he talk. I remember the whole pale scene like pages before it happened. I don't know, a
So,
dagger that makes things bubble and smoke. I'm in for it. 100%.
so you think this is just something about this special dagger, not about like I kind of felt like maybe like there was some kind of weird like power that comes off of her or something because
Mm.
she's a dark friend, but this is just like a magic dagger or something.
I mean, I would say that's what we get here because we don't learn anything that she's specifically doing.
Right.
Um, but the dagger has these cool effects. So like, Matt's got his dagger, she's got a dagger. I don't know what it is about us fantasy nerds, but we love our daggers.
Yeah,
So,
all right.
straight up, like it's just a thing. Like you want to talk about tropes, boom, there it is, guilty as charged. Um, but yeah, no, I mean, as you said, I think it's interesting that it feels like an escalation with these dark friends coming out of the woodwork, right? Because it's not just like one, it's like it just goad, then Pater, then this woman, right? And it's just like boom, 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 boom. So,
Yeah, but again, it's just not it doesn't feel like it's really progressing anything to me. Like
mm,
honestly, like this
because you already know
chapter,
they're safe,
I already know
know
they're
this.
safe. I don't know, like being attacked by yet another dark friend and getting away. They've already been attacked by Goad and they got away.
Mm,
Pater comes up, okay, he's inept, that's kind of funny. They get away. Another
right.
girl attacks them. This is like the third one. I guess there's rule of threes is a thing, but like neither of these top the goad one, which is like so you've already given like the kind of crescendo of a dark friend
Oh,
coming after you,
interesting.
and these two are
Uh,
so much more
okay.
minor. I mean, I
right?
kind of get this idea that like it's fueling this paranoia, but I feel like I don't know. I don't feel like I had to be in scene for those, because they just don't
You're
feel
feeling
as momentous as the last one.
so here's where we get to guess. Will Peter or this woman with the smoking dagger show up in the show?
Yeah, I'd say no, man.
I would say 100% no. They won't even be there.
Yeah.
It'll just be Go with the Lightning, maybe. And we'll talk more obviously after the trailer. But
Okay, okay, okay.
because I have seen it, you have not.
Gotcha.
But yeah, no, I think yeah, because as you're saying, you're giving the city that it's repetitive, and I've been thinking about this, like knowing we'd of course be having this chat, but I feel like this is Hallmark fantasy. This is like Hallmark the journey
Hmm.
of experiencing things stretched over time
Mm-hmm.
to feel the journey, right? Like it's not quick because journeys aren't fast. Um, and so I feel like this is just, it wouldn't, to me, the story wouldn't be right without this because it would just be, we're here, we experience the crescendo of goad, lightning, and then we're in Caemlyn, right? And obviously it could have been written that way, right? It could have been like we took a bunch of carriage hay rides and now we're in Caemlyn,
Yeah.
right? Where the action's really going to happen. And that's just not the nature of like core fantasy. But I do think fantasy is also changing over time. I
Mm.
think we're seeing a lot of successful fantasy these days that is much more in your face and action driven and doesn't have these stretches of time, right? Because a lot of people bounce off this stuff because just you're saying like, how do these two really compare, right?
Yeah.
In comparison, they're kind of forgettable almost. So, man, I
I
don't,
think
again, to me, fascinating.
Yeah, again, if I wasn't reading this with you to talk about it for this podcast,
Sure.
I might have dropped earlier than this chapter, but
Oh,
this
yeah.
chapter is the one that tested me, where I was like,
I
just
know it did.
get
I
there
could tell you that.
already. What?
Right?
Come
Nope.
on.
Never ending chapter. Chapter 33, the never ending chapter.
So long. It was so
I want to
long.
know how many words this read. Is this like 6K? 7K? I think it's gotta be.
Yeah.
I need to look it up. It's a chunk. It is a chunk of a chapter. I should look it up.
And it's so
But anyway,
weird. We get to this guy, and then we already know he's God. So this is just like another character. It doesn't matter.
right.
Um, and then we keep going, and okay, so it's kind of interesting, I guess, that all these people are going into town to see the dragon.
Hmm, hmm.
Why are we all doing this? Like, what?
I mean, oh, dude, I think I got it. It's the Dark Waits. The reason why this chapter is 10K long, 10,000
Yes,
words. Actually, it's 10,410.
that
It
is
is
a big one.
besides, well, that doesn't count. There's the fake prologue with Egwene. That is by far, well, almost by far, the longest chapter in the entire book.
Wild.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
like, and I
There's,
don't think anything important happens in it. Like, if you're,
yep, it's the journey. It's straight up the
oh
journey. Yeah.
no,
In terms
no.
of like plot progression, in terms of like a standard story, yeah, no, it would just be, I 100% bet this is next in the show. No question.
Yeah,
But
see,
this
Jeff,
is
that's
like
just
the nature of it.
I get
Yeah.
what you're saying that you want to feel like you're in a journey, but that's kind of the beauty of writing is that you can convey that without literally having
Now you
to
get it.
feel it. It's got a name. So
Absolutely.
in my grad program, they called it the imitative imitive imitive fallacy, where
Okay.
like and like writers often try to justify something because they're like, oh, I want to portray this character's depression, so I'm gonna make like the story very like depressive and very
Hmm.
to like mirror this character's inner state. And like and like all my teachers at the grad program, they constantly brought this thing up. They're like, don't do that. You can portray like a character's boredom without making the story boring. right? You can portray a character's depression without like literally making the story depressing. So I feel like part of good writing is going, I'm going to portray the length of this journey without literally having to make you suffer through the length of that journey.
And that's the difference between epic fantasy fans and not like
I
straight
mean,
up
but it's
like
so
we
it's got a name. Like people have categorized this.
I, I know, but I'm just saying that I mean I feel like this is the core, or not the core, but one of that is so fun for us to get to talk about in lit versus genre. This is literally lit versus genre,
Right, right.
right? But again, obviously, there's plenty of stories that shy away from it for the reason your professors are talking about, right? It's a gamble, right? You're gambling that people will keep going with it, and some people love it, some people want it, and some people do not. And I would probably say most people, yeah, not even probably, most people don't want it, right? But some people do. Like this, I would hate to lose this. Like this is what
Whoa.
is epic fantasy to me.
Well, in my annotations, I will put
Uh,
uh meets a few dark friends. And then you can
me
just go to
too.
the next chapter and you're good.
I tell you, I mean, I feel like if you could release this abridged version before the show comes out, so we could check. I mean, you have to. You have to. I think it was the trailer says like, well, we'll see it when we do our trailer reaction video. But like, I think it's like November 22nd or something. You got to release it before,
All
so that way we
right.
could see like which beats they actually do. Right? That
Right.
would be
I'll
amazing.
make some predictions. When we do our video, I'm gonna make some predictions about the trailer before the trailer
Perfect.
happens, and
Perfect.
we'll
I'm
see what
almost
happens.
hesitant to have you watch it because like it's going to be it's not crazy spoilery,
Uh,
but I feel like it's almost crazy what it is. So, but anyway, we'll talk about that then.
all
Anyway,
right.
so I do feel like we should talk about the chapter 34, The Last Village, which I love. Well, I mean, there's just a conversation that I love, but
Oh, okay.
let's get into it.
Yeah,
What
I
do you think?
think we're into it. I've gone over to the next chapter, so they're going down the road. All these people
Oh yeah,
are going to Caemlyn. You know, the
right.
road's like freaking like filled up now, basically. Um,
This really justifies everything to me. Like this justifies them staying to the road as opposed to like going on some like I feel like Perrin and Egwene are like so much smarter. They're like, we can't travel the roads. That would be crazy. And
yeah.
Matt and Rand are like, yeah, we're just taking the road to Camelin, right?
Yeah. I this whole universe is so confusing, and like basically like at the end of this chapter we get like Mr. Exposition, a new story time character to give us story time, to understand a
That's
little
so good.
bit more.
Well, let's talk about before we get to that because I know exactly what you were talking about. I was
Yeah.
waiting for this, but before that, I absolutely love the conversation between the driver and the innkeeper. Um,
All
I don't
right.
know. It feels just so much like a guy who is a more upright citizen noticing something weird about another guy, and then the other guy like I don't know. The innkeeper feels so real. Like he feels like a dark friend, but also feels like an innkeeper. Like get off my property. Like I've got business to do. Like I don't know. And the fact that the cart driver's like making fun of him and everything. But where is it? We should get to
Yeah,
that
we'll get
before I'm
to.
talking about it.
Let me just say here that
Oh,
I
sure, sure.
thought this
Sorry.
was interesting, where they're like many people, maybe followers of the false dragon,
Hmm,
maybe
hmm,
even dark friends, if there's any difference between the two.
hmm.
I'm like, yeah, there is a difference, but there's it's like everything's so mixed up, and I feel like it gets mixed up within the Aes Sedai later when we find out the queen just sends her kids off
Yeah.
to get trained by the Aes Sedai. The other kid gets sent somewhere else. Yet we hate Aes Sedai, but I guess not everybody does. Maybe people in this part of town don't hate him as much. I mean,
Well, let's address this one first because I hear you with the ice down, but let's just dig into this one a little bit. So we've got the maybe followers of the false dragon, so that would be followers of Logain,
right.
right? And then you got maybe even dark friends, which are followers of like the dark one, right?
Hmm.
Um, And I think the reason, because again, we learned the dragon will break the world, right? Or the dragon like who calls Armageddon, right?
Right.
So, and the dark one will also kind of in a different way cause Armageddon. So that's why I think he's leaning into that. If there was any difference, just that there is a difference, like you're saying, but the people, just like regular people in this area, in towns or whatever, are going to view those groups almost as if those lines blur because they're both groups that are going to cause change
Uh,
to their lives,
yeah,
basically.
I didn't take the sentence to mean that. Like I
Mm,
took it to mean, followers of the Frost Dragon and Dark Friends are on the same team. Um,
mm.
you're taking it to mean they both suck.
Right, exactly, exactly. They both suck in
All
different
right.
ways. They're both going to cause disruption to like these people's lives, and that's kind of the theme. I know you love your themes, but that's sort of the theme we get in this chapter. Even the cart driver talking about it, like, and we've seen this repeated that like farmland's drying up, calves are born dead, and everything. Like something is
Mm-hmm.
wrong with the world, right? And so like, what's the cause? Who's to blame?
Yeah. All right. And here's what I was pointing to, where it's like, if they are chasing you, why should they chase you now when they've been waiting for you? I'm like,
Right,
yeah,
right.
put it together,
But
buddy.
then right, but then they stay on the road. I feel like the people. Well, here's what I like. They're idiots for staying on the road, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
right? But at the same time, it totally makes sense that people would be like, "Oh shit, a false dragon! Like we should go check that out," right? And so there's this huge, like that's a thing to see in this world, and I love that. Like just the world building and the concept behind that. And so that's causing all these people, many who are very young, to go like on this adventure to see this person, and that then disguises Matt and Rand's like journey to
Mm-hmm.
Caemlyn. So it's like they're idiots, and I like that it's kind of contrasted. I don't know if it's going as far as unreliable narrator. Like I don't feel like Robert Jordan is leading us to say, oh, they're idiots compared to Gwen and Perrin, but based on what we learn, it does feel that way. And then only in this moment is kind of their continued progression to Camelin, to me at least, justified because they're protected by the masses of people also going in the same direction who are their age.
Mm-hmm. Um, right on. So let's get into that conversation.
Sure.
Oh yeah, here we go. Not yet 20.
Not yet 20. Boom. There it is. We've been waiting. Okay,
Page
what page number are we on?
485 according to this
There it is.
digital
There it
edition.
is. 485 to learn that fact. There
Oh,
you go,
here's one
Steve.
thing that I kind of didn't like about that, though, about this
Mm.
conversation. It just like seems like comically evil lying. Like, oh, like this is almost like in a slapsticky comedy. My friend's a rich man. A merchant. Yeah, that's it. My friend. This one especially. I was like, my friend. I'm like, okay, clearly
Um,
it's being hinted at pretty strongly here.
it is.
We know you
It is.
love a
I
mirror
mean,
draw. You and Mirror Draw are like best buds.
so true, true that. I mean, it's not subtle in this part, but overall, I do like just. It's almost like we're an alternate POV for this part. We're not. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Iran's just listening in, but I feel like each of these are people with their own goals, and I think that's what I like about this section so much. Like, you've got this one guy who is a dark friend who's got this bounty that he could collect and he wants to. But he also know he's been acting sketchy around people, so he's got to justify himself, right? So he's like, we all know, everybody knows he's lying, right? But we're watching someone trying to lie and being pretty bad at it. And so that's fun. And then we're also watching this other guy who's more upstanding, who's also got his goals and is kind of like making, this other guy justify himself. And so they both just have their own clear POVs to me. And that's what I appreciate is they both feel like more fleshed out people. And I will agree that this one dark friend kind of leans into caricature a bit with the ellipses and
Mm-hmm.
these uses. But overall, like I do enjoy that they both have their own clear agenda going on. And they're obviously conflicts with each other.
I mean, sort of clear. So, like, this guy tells him
Mhm.
we're after these two not yet 20-year-old kids,
Right?
one with a sword. Then they like go right to him, and the guy's like, "Oh yeah,
right?
totally, hop on board." Like he doesn't. He's like, the dude was just
I
telling
was
you
like,
they're after these kids. Like, don't you think
I
this
was
will put you in the slightest bit of danger? But okay,
here's here's the fun. I read that and I swore he was going to react that way. Like I was waiting. Like
right,
even though I've read this, multiple times, I was like, oh, yeah, he's going to be like a little skeptical or be like, I just heard about two kids.
yeah,
Imagine being that guy, right? You've just heard a crazy story from one person about like, oh, we're paying all this money for
right,
two kids, and then two kids approach you. You're like, what are the chances? I
right.
wanted him to be like, what are the
Exactly.
odds?
Like, and then
You
I'm
know what I'm
fine with
saying?
him taking them, but I feel like he would
Right.
comment at least,
He
since
would
that
exact.
literally
I
just happened.
totally, dude. I'm not gonna say I remembered him commenting, but it was
Mm,
almost to that level.
mm-hmm.
Like almost to that level. I was just like waiting for him to say something about that he had just heard that, right? And then, yeah, it totally doesn't
But
happen.
then here's the other thing that I feel confused about, like everybody wanting to go see the false dragon.
Mhm.
I I don't
Oh, okay.
I don't want
Yeah,
there to be another false dragon. You know, there might not be another false dragon to see before I die. Light send it so. So I'm taking that to mean good. I don't
right,
want there to be another false dragon.
right, right.
But this one I gotta go see. And then I'm like, it's just a dude, right? We're all just going to just look at some dude.
Yeah, with some guy who can channel, who can like use the
Right.
one power. But yeah, like why is that a thing?
I was also
I mean
confused
because
about false dragon. So
mhm.
So for some reason when it first came up, I was like, "Oh, these guys are like faking that they have the
Oh.
power. That's why they're
Mm.
false." But these dudes do straight up have the power.
We know Logain has for sure.
Yeah, yeah, but they're not. But they're not really the rebirth of them.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. That's why
But
they're
like,
called false.
how would you know? Like everybody just
I
kind of
mean,
decides, like, no,
yeah, yeah,
you're
I mean
not the guy.
that's the thing. I mean, that's exactly it, right? Like, how do you know?
Hmm.
And that's how do I phrase this? That's addressed to a degree. Like,
Hmm.
because yeah, you don't know. Like, are you the guy? Are you not the guy? Because yeah, there's this like known prophecy that the dragon will come again, who's a male who can use the true source, right?
Yeah.
And like, who is it, right? And so that's why people, like Logain, and others, you know, say I am, but then is it, right? And so in this case, because he was captured, I think that's why. But even notice in this conversation, actually right above where you've highlighted, you've got Kim saying, so you two are going to Caemlyn to see the dragon, eh? And then Rand says the false dragon. And then
Hmm.
Bunt says, of course, right? Because even with people, it's like, is it? Like you don't know if it's a guy who channels and can channel powerfully. Maybe it is. It's only through like, does he end up doing the things prophecy says that will determine yes or no?
I guess
So yeah, it is a big question.
yeah, I guess the reason why like I'm like why do people want to go see this guy? It does feel like
Mm.
a thing that's helping the plot along. But
Mm.
like
Hmm.
if I live in this world,
Interesting.
A these MFers
Dangerous.
have been popping up like all over the place, false dragons, and B like he's just not making me feel like I understand why everybody wants to go see him. If he's
Mm.
literally the false one, then like who cares? You would want to see the real one, right? That's the one that would draw the
Interesting.
big crowds, would be the real dragon. And I even kind of wonder if like people everybody they were running into were more up in the air about that. If they want to see him because maybe he's the real one,
Well, I mean,
that
that's
would
what
make
this guy,
sense to me.
yeah, that's what this guy kind of insinuates, right?
I mean, I guess.
I,
Yeah.
I mean, it's super light. I agree. Yeah, it's like so light. But that's a really interesting point. It, I think what it's going for is that it's like an event. This isn't they have talked about this happening more frequently, for sure,
Mm.
right? But yeah, no, I mean, I guess I think it could have been laid out more clearly that Logain is different from many others that have claimed to be the
Mm.
dragon reborn, and that he can use the one power, because some males claim to be the dragon reborn and they even can't, and that's been listed, but it's been hundreds of
Yeah.
pages ago, right? Like I noticed these things because I know the story now. I
Yeah.
remember us reading earlier and them talking about some dragons and that being the
Yeah, I
case.
think that might have
Um,
been what confused me a little bit because I think you're right.
yeah,
There was some talk about like they don't use the power, and so I just thought that was the
right,
idea of a false one was that he didn't have the
right, yeah.
power.
So, but Logain, they've talked about that he actually like can. So, and that's I think what's trying to get across. Like maybe he is real. Like maybe he is. But yeah, that could have been leaned into a lot more. It could have. I mean, I feel like if we were taking a class at your school or any school, right, that was talking about writing, they would be all over this. I think they would be like, okay, yeah, let's have Logain. Let's have him seem like maybe he is the actual real dragon,
Mm-hmm.
right? And everyone's questioning it. And then, Rand and other characters even questioning, right? Like there
Right.
could be a lot more in your face conflict about it.
Or have
But
everybody
this,
thinking he is the real one while we're
right?
going, oh, clearly it's Rand.
Right. Exactly. That would create that difference. But this is definitely a much more, I think what we're also living in is a world where people don't want that to be true. As we see
Mm-hmm.
him saying, like, because if it is, like, if it is the real dragon, it's like, oh, that means you're living during end times. Like, congratulations. You were born at the time where Armageddon
Yeah.
is happening.
But that would
Right?
be
So people
something
don't
to
want to believe
see,
it.
though. Like, I don't know.
Mm,
I
yeah.
still feel like why are we all going to see the false one? Like, I don't. I
I think there,
accept
I think there's,
it, but then again, it
yeah.
feels like, yeah, you're like, oh, we want an event here. And it's like, yeah, okay, for plot reasons, we want an event here, but
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense to me completely.
I think a little more could have been given as to why Logan is different than the others, like a reminder of
Mm-hmm.
why he's different. Because there's a lot of talk about going to see the dragon at this point in the book,
Mm-hmm.
and it has been a long time
Yeah.
since we've talked about like the other dragons and how Logan is
Or
different.
if it's gonna
And yeah,
be
you're
like a
right,
big public execution, kind of like a big like party when
right,
we
like a
execute somebody.
display.
Okay, like I could.
Like, are we going to gentle him in front of
Right,
everybody? That
right.
type of
Is
thing.
that something to
Yeah, and
see,
there's
like a form of entertainment or something?
exactly, and there's none of that listed. So
Right.
yeah, it is very subtle through here.
And this is like a
I,
thing, like you can always supply these reasons after the fact, or people can, the fans will tell you, oh, here's why, in this universe. But if you don't get that in the moment, it feels weird. Like it's not,
no, completely.
you know.
Yeah, no, it would only take a sentence,
Right, right.
honestly. Like just to even, and it doesn't need to give everything away. It could just be, we're going to see the generaling or the reason he's different. And like I'm saying, I do think fantasy does something interesting in terms of it does strain you to keep like a lot of information in mind over a long stretch of
Right.
time, which obviously doesn't work for a lot of readers. A lot of people bounce off it. I know many people that stopped reading even Game of Thrones, right? Because it was like too many characters to keep track of.
Mm.
It's too much, right? Um, but I feel like I'm not saying that's an excuse. I'm just saying that I feel like that is something that fantasy sometimes does, and it especially tough for us, right? Where we're only reading, a chapter, two chapters every week, as opposed to binge reading this over the course of like, a month or
Mm-hmm.
something, right? And so that can obviously change the nature of what's on your mind. But it has certainly been a while since like the other false dragons that were talked about, like back in when they were in Edmund's Field, the two rivers were
Right.
were really discussed. So
Well, here's the
yeah, no,
thing:
I
the
hear you.
two things work against each other, though, because you're saying like, okay, we're taking a long time to read this, so maybe it's harder to keep everything in our minds. But then
Mhm.
again, if you want me to blow through it in a month, make it a page turner, my friend. And like, nothing about these last two chapters were remotely like, ooh, I gotta get to the next page. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like, it doesn't have that sort of narrative thrust
no,
to it because you're doing the journey thing.
yeah, I feel again yeah, I think. what again, I know I've said this before, but what I love about having these chats is seeing like why people turn the page,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I think the reason we see in movies, especially these days, like where, writing has gone to die. But just that so much of it is, let's see who's gonna hook up with who, let's see who's gonna die, let's see who's gonna like it's so in your face reason to turn the page. And obviously there's or watch the next scene. And I feel like it certainly works, right? I mean, there's great, mysteries. I mean, Dan Brown is, a machine at this, at creating a reason for you to turn the page.
Mm-hmm.
I personally found his lecture on writing incredibly helpful on
Mm.
Masterclass. I was like
Interesting.
fascinated. Oh, it was amazing. Loved it. One of the most useful ones I watched on Masterclass, honestly. Um, however, uh, again, this sort of speaks to a different reader. I would be turning the page. Now, there's two reasons I could be turning the page. One reason, as a fantasy reason, just I want to live there. It's great. It's amazing. It's escapism,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also teaching. Like there's that, but there's also like I'm waiting for something to happen, right? So
Mm.
it could be either one, Like I'm going to keep turning the page because I know something big is coming. And yeah, I'm experiencing the journey, and yeah, it's a slog, but I'm going to get rewarded for that slog, and that reward is going to feel all the richer because I went through all these pages to get to it.
Right.
And it feels different as a reader because of that, as opposed to the instant gratification that we're, getting in other forms of
Yeah.
medium. So, so yeah, so that's just, anyway, my reaction to that.
And I guess that justifies to you then like these story time moments because like
Mhm, perfect transition.
these things
Perfect.
are
Yeah.
not a means to an end. Like these are the end
Mhm.
for the type of reader you're describing.
Well, here's okay. I'm gonna do I'm gonna do mild
All
spoiler,
right.
but I think it's justified and worth it. What I have been really impressed by, I know some of our conversations that I've been like, well, true, you got me. I feel like Robert Jordan grows as a writer. He's amazing for the series overall, right? But what I think Robert Jordan does amazingly in this first book is, despite everything, to not overwhelm the reader by I know that might sound crazy because there is a lot that could
Yeah,
overwhelm the
I
reader,
was just about
but
to
to
say
not,
like how many balls in
I
the
know,
air are okay, and you're
I,
telling me it's not
I,
overwhelming.
I know. But one thing I think he really does well is he introduces characters before you ever meet them.
Mm.
So Rand, if we think way back when Rand was like walking to Two Rivers with his dad, and he was thinking, like his dad, I think even brings up Egwene,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then he's thinking about his friends, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we know who Egwene is. We know who Matt and Perrin are before we ever even meet them,
Okay.
right? And that makes it easier to then get these new characters come in. I also think that's why he structured the book the way he did. By that, I mean Robert Jordan structuring by giving us all Rand, and then later, once we knew the characters, then getting chapters about like,
Mm-hmm.
Perrin or whatever. Um, and so that, again, this is a spoiler, but here we're learning about people in the history of this area before we're going to potentially meet those individuals.
Yeah. But I don't know why I'm supposed to care.
Mm.
Right?
I mean,
And I don't, and I also don't know I'm going to meet these people. Right?
true,
Maybe that does make me care more and be more interested. But right now, they are so disconnected from like
right?
anything that's going on. It really just seems like random story time. And
Yeah.
maybe I'm supposed to be sitting here thinking, okay, everything's important. Pay attention to all this because this is all going to come back. But I feel like there are other things where gosh, well, I get that the payoffs are going to be really slow, that this is like 100 million books. But like, dang, like there's like so many things that have just seemed like not really super important that I only even
Right.
have vague recollections of now, like the the wandering people, traveling people going
Mhm.
into that
Oh,
one
a lot
area where
one.
they see the women warriors and the women warriors say
Yeah, yeah,
something
yeah.
and like all this stuff. It just like there's so many like of these different little things of worlds, and I
Mhm,
get
mhm.
like the fantasy readers like that's so rich, that's so deep, And I'm
Yeah,
like, that's
exactly.
so random, is what I'm like. It's so random. Like,
Well,
what? Why am I listening to this guy who's just talking to himself, right? Like, he
right,
kind of justifies this a little bit, like, oh, this is this
yeah,
guy. He likes to just hear his own voice. But, like,
right,
okay, but that's convenient so that you can just give us this exposition. This is just an exposition dump, like
completely,
the
completely,
definition of it. And
completely. Though I feel like this is a pretty much well done one. Though I agree, yeah, it fits. It is for those who don't know. Just real quick, I'm sure most are. If you've gotten this far in our videos, you likely know what an exposition dump is. But it's the thing that a lot of fantasy is, shat on for. Of the, I'm going to tell you a whole bunch about my world. Boom, here you go. And the, classic, young writer mistake is to do this too early. Robert Jordan waits till page 500 to, no, not really. Obviously, we've gotten those early.
right.
But the point is here we get one. And to
And
me,
again,
like,
I think
here's what,
many lit teachers would say it's a mistake to do it ever.
oh, they're so wrong. So here's why it works. Let me explain. So I feel it's justified here because you've got a guy in his cart alone with strangers driving through the night, right?
Mm-hmm.
People totally want to hear their like Rand even talks about. I feel it's a great line of that the voice. It's like a voice of a human staves off, um, the fear of the world around them. You know what I mean? And like that's so true when
Again,
you're in
because
scary
people do
situations.
it in real life doesn't make it good writing.
But it does resonate. It can. I'm not saying in all instances, just
Mm-hmm.
because something happens in real life, it works. But there is a sense of resonance of like that feels true to me, and so it works because of that. And so I'm saying that's one reason why this can work.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, we have recently gotten. I feel like this was led into. It's not like he's randomly talking about the Queen and the Queen's Guard. We had gotten before the other driver who was nice, who I mean, I meant to point out this line, but during COVID times, having that one guy talk about we've gotten every type of sickness there is. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not worried about whatever sick you got. Come stay with us. I
Mm-hmm.
was like, oh, tug at my heartstrings. Like, that
Yeah,
one
they should have
driver.
stayed with that
He,
dude. I don't know what they were
I think
thinking.
because that dude was great, right? I want to meet his old lady. But so that guy, right? He talks about how surprised he is that they don't even know what a Queen's Guard looks like,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then we get to hear Rand, eavesdropping on a conversation of like a farmer or whatever complaining to the Queen's Guard about all the people that are going on the road to see the false dragon, which feels real. Like, oh, a flood of people are coming through. People live in the area like, what the heck? Get off our land. What are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
That all feels like so legit and like, again, grounds me in the world, makes me feel like I'm actually there. And then you've got this guy talking about the same sort of thing, but just different, like a different aspect of it. So talking about like the trouble with the area and what the queen should be doing. So this to me feels very set up, very rational that someone will want to talk as they're driving through the night on this crazy scheme, as the innkeeper says. So like I have read some terrible info dumps in my life. And like this has many, many layers that are then leading to this information about them. It is an info dump 100%, but it was very much set up. So that's why I say this is a good example of an info dump.
All right. We will agree to disagree. I just don't care about this info. I don't know why I'm
Well,
supposed
so
to care. I'm gonna learn
so
about
that's
it
one last
later,
thing.
great, but like it doesn't make
So
me care right now, you know?
totally, totally. So there was one thing I meant to say when you were talking about like why, right? So to the other thing, and this is again why I think these conversations are fascinating, and this is once more kind of the heart of lit versus genre, is what do readers care about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I gotta think that mystery readers care about there being like a puzzle, you know what I mean? And something that they can figure out maybe, or even maybe they don't care about figuring out, they just care about the reveal and the excitement of finally learning. And I would think even the most basic mystery reader does have some guess as to who it is, and then they want to find out if they're right or wrong. And a romance reader wants to experience the passion of, that new flame of meeting someone and what that's like, right? And I feel like a fantasy reader, or at least an epic fantasy reader specifically, wants to experience what world someone else has created. It's like they're literally getting to
Mm-hmm.
live in another reality. And so because of that, this to me, I know for you, like it's not, that's not the thing, right? Or it can be, but just not in this way, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like this way appeals to a certain group of individuals that are like, tell me about your world. Yes. Like just give me like there's a reason the Silmarillion exists,
Mm-hmm.
which is just a book about what the world of the Lord of the Rings is. You know what I mean?
Right.
And like that's like that appeals to a certain fan base. And that's what we're getting a taste of through this. Like even if we're never seeing these characters, some people just want to know, like, yeah, give me your world building. You
But
know,
I
so
think that's why
I just want to
like
address that.
Tolkien put all that stuff in
Right.
there so that he could
Hmm.
write the good books and not
Ah, yeah,
have to
yeah,
put all that stuff in there, or have that stuff just be more organic, like he knows it, but
yeah.
he doesn't just have to like tell you in story time. I don't know, actually. I mean, I haven't read Lord of the Rings novels, so like I don't know, maybe he does do that a ton,
That
but
that's next for us, obviously.
oh lord, oh lord.
After
I mean,
after
I
told
would
so,
like to
dude, you
read
don't
them
even
now
need
to
it.
kind of
Dude,
be like, okay, did
dude, all three books, I swear, are shorter than this one book.
right.
I feel pretty safe in saying that. Maybe I'm slightly off,
And,
but
and
still, I think I'm
and
right.
am I right inferring from the movies that he just has more storytelling chops? Because it feels like that has more storytelling chops to me. That it has stakes. That it has,
The
like
last time,
these. That it has clarity of what's going on and what we're
dude,
doing.
after Nabokov or Tolstoy, I'm so for it. I swear, the last time I read those books was when I was
Huh.
like
Hmm.
13. Like
Okay.
I'm for it. Let's
It
do
might
it.
be interesting as
There. At
comparative.
least At least the first book. We could just read Fellowship of the Ring,
Mm-hmm.
call it a day, right? So yeah, no, I think we should straight up.
Right on.
So we'll see, we'll see, we'll see.
All right. Now, so I got to the end. I'm like, man, 4 chapters now. Straight Rand.
Right, right.
Rand, what? What? Are we
But you
back to
knew
this just being Rand's book again? Like, this
it.
is so
But
weird.
but you knew it. I mean, he just said welcome. Well,
No,
I
you
thought you
could
were
have done a flash to Perrin here and
you
just
you
leave
could
this
have.
hanging.
Okay, I will admit I was surprised. I was slightly surprised. I thought I was going to highlight on to the front of them in a grand gesture, Caemlyn the grandest city. I thought I was going to get a highlight on the double
Yeah, the
grand.
grand.
That's what I was waiting for. I'm actually disappointed there's no highlight there. But but yeah, no, we we knew obviously this was this, pardon me, a setup, much like we saw with the inn.
uh,
Um, and then remember that inn where they were like, welcome to, oh, I mean, it was Whitebridge, I think. It was like, welcome. No, I think they said, welcome to the inn. It was like, now you get to experience the inn.
mm,
And so it's the same thing here. It was like, welcome to Caemlyn. We're like, yes, now I get to experience Caemlyn, right? And it's like we learned the city's history. I think the thing we're experiencing, and just quick backup, because obviously we're wrapping up things up,
uh,
but I think what's happening again is we're learning the history of Caemlyn sort of right before Caemlyn.
uh,
And I think you might have appreciated like these details about like Morghase's children stuff maybe a chapter ago, right? Like even if you didn't know how much it was there, like if there's just a little hint, like here, like just a mention, like a sentence or two, a chapter right before we get to Camelin, as opposed to, well, I'm sorry, a chapter before this chapter. Because right now we're learning, let me tell you the history of Camelin. And now we're in Camelin, right?
right.
And so that feels like a little like too late kind of thing, or like too obviously set up. Do you think maybe you're feeling some of that with like the history lesson right before we get to
I
Camelin?
mean, I don't think it's a problem of setup. I just don't. I don't care
I'm like,
about these
well,
story times. Like if I guess if I'm gonna meet these two kids, then
mm-hmm,
like I'll be like, okay, now I'm more interested in this. But like, I don't know why we can't just meet them and find out about
mm-hmm,
this about them. I don't know why we have, just random story time of guy talking to himself. It
fair
just
enough,
feels
fair
like
enough.
an awkward way of doing it, like most exposition dumps. That's like what's wrong with them is that they're just awkward. And like I don't know. Yeah, like I don't think I need a
No,
setup to
just
be
curious.
here. I'm happy to finally be here. Good lord, Beck. There was some other
No,
line somewhere where they talk about like how far it is to Caemlyn, and then they're like how far it is to get to Tarvalon, and I'm like, oh lord. I wish I knew where that was. I highlighted it, but I think we went past it. Where they're even talking about the distance, and I'm like, yeah, I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it, guys.
yeah, I was. That's literally what I was going to ask you. I was like, "Are you feeling the journey,
I'm
Steve? Are
feeling
you
the
feeling the time?
journey. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it.
You're feeling it."
But
And
I
then
am
we'll see. We'll
sticking
see
with
if the
this
reward.
for y'all. I'm sticking with this for y'all. I want to see at the end if this
We
blows me
got this.
away in some way. Jeff, what are you thinking? Are you thinking that at the end of this, I'm gonna be a convert to this? Or are you thinking I'm
Absolutely,
gonna be just
100%.
cynical as I am now?
Absolutely not. There's no way.
All right.
Well, no. Let me rephrase. Let me rephrase. I think that I think that you are going to feel some of this, right? I think it's actually really cool we've talked about it, and you were like, finally, we're at Camelin.
Hmm.
Exactly,
Hmm.
right? Like, I'm interested to see, honestly, more of your reactions to some of these upcoming chapters
Hmm.
than I am to the end, because again, it's an end to a huge series,
Right.
right? So, like, yeah, like there's an end, there is, but it's an end that leads to things.
Right.
So I'm more interested on like how did this all these what we just read, honestly, the biggest chapter in the whole book, then affect the way we read about Camelin. So stuff like that, I'm really excited to see. But in terms of a massive convert at the end, I mean, like I said, this is epic fantasy for epic fantasy lovers. It is not for the norm. So I'll be curious. We'll see. We'll see. And I think, again, it's going to be truly fascinating to see if the show does exactly what you would want from this. That's what I'm also crazy curious about.
Right on. Okay, well, we're gonna check that out next, everybody. We'll try and put up a
Yep.
video soon of our reactions to that
Yes, yes.
trailer. I'm gonna go see it for the first time. So
First time.
hopefully we'll see some of y'all there.